Right.
Shalom Aleichem, everyone. I hope everyone is well. It's Erev Shabbos Parshat Shemot. We start a new Sefer, and Baruch Hashem Yeshiva is going amazingly well. We have a lot of alumni visiting here, including Aaron Kofsky, who is standing on the other side of the camera, helping me out a little bit.
Hello.
And I want to share a very, very quick idea on the Parsha. Very striking. Our introduction to Moshe Rabbeinu, in the beginning, we're told that he comes from a house of Levi, his mother's from Beis Levi, his father's from Beis Levi. We hear the story of how he smites the Mitzri, and he has to run away from Mitzrayim to Midian, and there in Midian he becomes the son-in-law of Yisro, and he tends to his flock. And in the course of our early description of Moshe, we are told about his job as a ro'et son, and listen to these psukim right before his initial revelation at the sneh. We are told an unbelievable set of psukim, and when you look at it, the message that the Torah is telling us really jumps off the page. Moshe haya ro'eh es son Yisro, chosno kohen Midyan, vayinag es hatzon achar hamidbar. Moshe tended the flock. That's what a shepherd does. He tends the flock, and what did he do? Vayinhag es hatzon. He leads the flock achar hamidbar. Striking. Very familiar. As we know, in a few generations from now, Moshe Rabbeinu is going to lead the flock of Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim into Midbar. Where does he lead this flock of sheep? Vayavo el har ha'elokim choreva. He leads them to har ha'elokim choreva. And in the har ha'elokim vayar malach Hashem elav v'labas eish mitoch hasneh. And a malach appears to him in fire from a sneh. Vayar, and Moshe is taken by the sneh. He sees that while it's burning, it never ever gets consumed. And then the pasuk tells us Moshe is told, he's amazed by what he's seeing. He's told to take off his shoes and vayomer. And the first thing Hashem says is Anochi Elokei Avicha. If you think about Moshe's life in this early revelation, it strikingly parallels what Klal Yisrael is going to experience themselves in the very, very same place. Moshe is going to lead his flock, the Jewish people, out of the Midbar. Moshe himself was drawn from water. He was drawn by Bas Para from water from the Teva, just like Bnei Yisrael will be drawn out of water in the process of Kriyas Yamsuf, going into a Midbar led by Moshe to Har HaElokim, to this very same place, to Choreva, to Har Chorev. And there, we're going to go and experience Kabbalah Satorah at Sinai, Har Sinai. Moshe experiences a revelation at the Sneh. No coincidence, the similarity in terminology, Sneh, Sinai. Sinai was a very, very lowly mountain. It wasn't a big mountain. And the Sneh, the bush, is also a very lowly bush. The first command that Klal Yisrael is going to receive from Hashem is Anochi Hashem Elokecha. The first words that will be uttered by Hashem to Moshe is Anochi Elokei Avicha. Something clearly is going on. Moshe paralleling Klal Yisrael. Moshe foreshadowing what happens to Klal Yisrael. And I think there are a lot of things that can be said to emphasize, to draw a lesson from this point. I'll mention two ideas. Number one, and we've perhaps discussed this in the past, but I believe, I just finished with my shir reading an article by Rav Soloveitchik, published in Tradition magazine in 1978, called Majesty and Humility. And he points out that we sometimes see Hashem in the most dramatic, majestic places. A beautiful sunset, an ocean, looking at the cosmos, that's cosmic man. But sometimes we see Hashem in the quietest of places, in our homes, in a very, very tsanua place, when we're perhaps confronting a challenge in life, an illness, the loss, death of a loved one. We see Hashem in those modest places as well. And perhaps one lesson is that in order to see Hashem, you need a little bit of distance from the world around us. We need to go ahead and create a little bit of separation. You don't find revelation in the middle of a big city. You go into a desert, a lonely, quiet desert. That's when Moshe has his first revelation. That's when Knesset Yisrael have their first national revelation. When you leave the city, When you leave the comfort zone and you're in the middle of nowhere, that's when perhaps that sense of hispodidus, that's when you can properly and really connect to Hashem. Perhaps another idea as well is that Moshe Rabbeinu, before his revelation, has to identify where exactly he lies, where his allegiances lie. Because on the one hand, Moshe is raised in the house of Paro. He's a prince of Egypt. He's Egyptian. On the other hand, his mother, his biological mother, the woman who raises him, who nurses him, is Jewish. So he's raised in the house of Paro by Bas Paro, but he's nursed by Yocheved, the Bas Levi. And Moshe has this dual identity. Remember that medrash that you learned when you were very, very young? That Moshe has in front of him coals and jewels, and he reaches for the jewels, he's pushed his hand to the coals. Again, that's the duality of Moshe in his early years. Is he a Mitzri, prince of Egypt, or is he a Yehudi? And when he goes out to see his brothers, who are his brothers? In being persecuted, his Jewish brothers, he says to the Mitzri, and he kills the Mitzri who's persecuting one of his brothers. And that is when Moshe identifies his ultimate allegiances. He seems to have this duality throughout his early years. Yigdal Moshe grows up in the house of Paro. In order to achieve that revelation, he has to identify where he truly stands. And when he identifies with his Jewish brethren who are suffering Mitzrayim, that is what enables him to become Moshe Rabbeinu. That's what's going to be that ability to stand up for those that are being oppressed, for those that are being persecuted. That's what gets Moshe to that point of revelation, where he's going to be the manig of Klal Yisrael, who facilitates the Yeshua that's going to come about al yedei the Ribono Shel Olam. And perhaps these are two core lessons. When Klal Yisrael has its first revelation, paralleling the first revelation of Moshe Rabbeinu, because there are lessons to be drawn. Revelation can come and can be realized when we're away from it all. When we have some quiet, when we're gole lamakom Torah, when we're perhaps not in our regular modality. And then the idea of revelation comes when we identify and take stands. Where are our allegiances? Who are we? What are we all about? We make those core decisions, identify our essence. That's when Ribono Shel Olam says, you have your allegiances with me. Now I reveal myself to you. Have a wonderful Shabbos Kodesh.